It's 1:30 on February 9, 2026. I call this meeting to order. Could we please have the roll call?
Yes. Hurt.
Here.
Hildreth.
Here.
Bentley.
Excuse me. He's on Zoom.
Bentley.
He's here.
Here.
He's not president.
Okay. Kamachi. Here. Thank you.
Oh, it says he's talking.
Are there any suggested changes to the minutes from the regular meeting on January 12, 2026? Hearing none, they are approved.
This thing here is just
Now
picking up
time for the
all
member
kinds of.
forum. Thank you.
I can go
Members are
someplace.
welcome to speak during the designated member forum at Rossmore Walnut Creek RWC board and committee meetings, either in person or via Zoom. Speakers are limited to 2 minutes and must clearly state their full name and Rossmore address before beginning. If speaking on behalf of another member, a signed consent form is required. To speak, members must submit a member form slip prior to the start of the forum. Instructions and slips are available at the meeting entrance, the RWC board office, and online. Please be advised that meetings are broadcast and recorded. By attending and participating, including during the open forum, attendees agree to and release RWC from all liability for their voice and/or likeness being recorded and broadcast for any lawful purposes without compensation. First, I'd like to call Mr. Phil Preissig. If you would please stand at the end of the table and speak loud so that we can hear you in the recording. President of the Sunday Dancers Club.
Thank you. Phil Preissig, 2625 Target number 5, President, Sunday Dancers Club, Treasurer, Penguin Dance Club, active attendee in 6 dance clubs altogether. There is a statement in the just approved January meeting minutes that is very misleading. Hopefully it is not deliberate obfuscation. Policies limit non-resident participation to 20%. However, policy 302.0 limits membership to 20%. Membership is very different from participation. Please show us in which policies participation is restricted or correct the minutes for posterity. Moving on. For the news article about January's meeting, there were concerns about the extra wear and tear to facilities and equipment from usage by non-residents. Usage is directly associated with actual attendance at events. Flow chart Ann Matola provided at the January meeting, there were concerns about wear and tear to facilities and equipment from usage by non-residents. Usage is directly associated with actual attendance at events. Today's meeting has a new supporting document, which has a couple of pages to it. That's also from Ann, it's a club metrics report dated November 4th. Here the term participation appears again, but now participation is not about membership, but it's instead, it's also not about actual attendance. It's instead just a mashup of July submitted club membership rosters and club submitted gate lists. Not everyone attends every one event, even if they're a member or if they're on the gate list. This report is neither relevant to the issue of wear and tear nor to residents' access to use of facilities and equipment. Case in point, page 3, bottom right, Club 4 is clearly the Sunday Dancers Club, showing 131 residents plus 290 non-residents for a very dramatic 421 participants. However, the Sunday Dancers event just prior to November 4th
That is time. Mr.
actually had
Preissig.
10 seconds. Actually had 102 people in attendance,
That's
less
time.
than 25% of the 421 in the report. We typically have 100 to 120
is
in
up,
the
sir.
range. Okay, thank you.
Next, I would like to call Roxanne Stallings. 2 minutes, please.
Roxanne Stallings, 3478 Rossboro Parkway, entry number 6. I had turned 83 years old last year. I moved here to Rossmore as knowing that I would be profoundly blind. I am currently the president of the Rossmore Ballroom Dance Club and have been president of several other clubs. My husband and I dance 5 to 6 times a week. On our board, we have 10 board members. 7 of them are non-residents. We value the non-resident participation enormously. I would not be able to function as a president if I didn't have Dorothy Williams, who is here as a non-resident. She runs the show. She does everything that I have to do or should be doing and communicating and doing all of the recreation department paperwork. We love our non-residents. We need to have them be participants. We have increasing costs. Several of our dance clubs have had to reduce their bands because they can't pay all the fees and all the costs that are increasing all the time. We ask you, please say no to this policy. Thank you.
Jackie Polson.
My name is Jackie Polson, 2671 Sakhalin Indian, number 4. My husband Peter and I are very active in the ballroom dance community here. We became alarmed when we read that the policy committee is considering limiting non-resident attendance at our clubs. We have lived in Rossmore for 2 years. We were totally unfamiliar with Rossmore until some of our dancing friends invited us to a dance here. We attended a number of dances over time and became enamored with the community. So when it came time to make a move, Rossmore was our first choice. That would never have happened had we not been invited to dances here. Fast forward to the present, we continue to enjoy the various dance opportunities here, and we enjoy inviting our non-resident friends to share the evenings with us. Just recently, one of these couples informed me that they have put their house on the market and decided to move to Rossmore. They said they never heard of Rossmore until I invited them to dances here. Recently, there's been a lot of talk about marketing Rossmore to the outside world. That was one of the big selling points in building a multi-million-dollar pickleball facility. Yet now we're talking about limiting the non-resident guests we can invite to our dances when this is a great exposure to our community. That makes no sense. Most of our dances here include live music, and that's expensive, very expensive. Without non-resident guests to help share the costs, our dance clubs would simply cease to exist. This would not just result in fewer dance clubs, but also a big lifestyle impact to the many of us here who enjoy all the benefits of dancing. It's unclear to me exactly what problem you're trying to solve by limiting non-resident attendance at clubs. But please be clear, you'd be creating a lot of new problems with clubs folding and no longer offering this great way of marketing our community to the outside world. Thank you.
Tom Debley.
Good afternoon, Tom Debley, 3324 Ptarmigan, number 3C. And I'm here again with regard to the flag procedure, flag policy. Thank you very much for bringing forward a good draft, I think, both the board and the staff. I do have just a minor suggestion. Under the protocols, the president issues a proclamation that only applies to federal facilities. The governors of the 50 states then follow with their own proclamations for state and municipal agencies and private organizations. Given that, in the draft number, item 4, half-staff observance, bullet 1, it says RWC shall observe all presidential and gubernatorial proclamations. I think simply eliminating the words president and, because it is the gubernatorial at that point. And I think that would clarify things. As you may recall, I had a visitor who arrived on the day that we had the complaints about the flag. And that visitor immediately had a question. Why are the flags in the city and at the courthouse at full staff and there's half staff at Rossmore? This was confusion. I think this policy with that addition, with that change, will suffice to make things clear. One point of order, there's been a letter to the editor that intimated that I was a partisan, and I'm not. I don't care whether this affects Democrats, Republicans, or purple people eaters for that matter. I just think it's good to clarify it from our
That
standpoint.
is time.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Dave Costers.
I'm Dave Costers, 3352 Terra Granada. I'm president of the Social Dance Club. And I share the concerns of many Rossmore residents about where staff and the policy committee may be headed with their comprehensive review of club use of community facilities. What stands out is the document that Phil showed as far as the flow chart. Now I'm going to focus on the workflow's proposal to rewrite policy 304.2, which is rules for the process for community facilities, rules process for community facilities. 304.2 explains who should draft the rules for the community facilities and the rule approval process. The policy says that residents who use those facilities should draft the rules. Established 16 years ago and revised 9 months ago for housekeeping, it limits staff to comments on legal, safety, budget, and fairness issues. The policy committee's role is also limited. It says that barring persuasive opposition, this committee should recommend approval of the draft rules to the full board. Now, clearly, RWC management's views on resident participation differ from the vision held by the 2010 board that wrote that policy. A year ago, I asked the general manager about the possibility of room user input on changes being considered to the room utilization rules, and the answer came back, no. This is an operational matter. Room users should not provide input while staff develops them. When I noted the inconsistency with 304.2, I was told that that doesn't apply because it doesn't apply, that whole policy doesn't apply to clubhouse facilities. So I respectfully urge the policy committee to first take a look at the merits of fully implementing
That is time.
the current version of 304.2 and deliver those recommendations to the full board. Thank you.
Mr. Barry Bryan.
Barry Bryan, 3874 Terra Granada 3C. I asked the policy committee to vote no on the proposal to charge non-residents any fee in order to attend Rossmore events. A non-member charge violates the mutual trust agreement, which precludes any charges beyond the coupon except for golf course and golf facilities, this is quote, lawn bowling, greens and lawn bowling facilities and stables, horses and riding facility fees. As it exceeds the authority of the trust agreement, it is outside the authority of the RWC staff or board to invoke these charges. Even if the general manager or council were of the opinion that the trust agreement no longer applies or can be ignored, that opinion has not been tested in court. It seems to be an unnecessary risk for RWC to take. If you approve this proposed fee, as clubs and non-residents try to avoid needing to pay the fee, room utilization will be further reduced. I can't believe that you consider lowering the room and facility utilization rates as showing good stewardship of the facilities that you were entrusted to manage for the mutuals and members' benefit. This will continue to send the message that the RWC staff and policy committee members approving added fees have little regard for the negative impact these charges will make on the quality of life at Rossmore. Measure and publish room utilization rates. Don't approve added fees. You can do better than that. Thank you.
Jolie Pollard.
Hello, I'm Jolie Pollard, 2200 Golden Rain Road, number 12. I moved to Rossmore a year and a half ago, so I'm a new newbie, but I'm on the board of the Sunday Dancers, a member of the Rossmore Ballroom Dance Club, the Penguin Club, the Tuesday Social, and the president and new organizer of the newly formed Argentine Tango Dance Club, which we will have our 4th meeting tonight. I understand that 80% of any club membership is required to be comprised of Rossmore residents. I'm concerned about the possible extrapolation of this percentage extending to include actual participation at events. These are 2 very different ratios. For members to be able to invite their guests to the dances, it's not only an integral part of the membership experience on a social level and increase the enjoyment of everyone, but it is a wonderful opportunity to share the vibrancy and variety of the Rossmore lifestyle to non-residents, who may very possibly then become future Rossmorians. Myself, the visits to Rossmore events as a guest figured strongly in my decision to purchase a home here a year and a half ago. Historic numbers will show that even with the added percentage of guest participation, the total numbers are still well within the capacity limits of all the rooms rented, thus within acceptable use parameters. The positives of continuing to include non-residents at these events far outweigh any negligible increase in wear and tear on facilities. Our dance clubs are an important part of social interaction and physical well-being for many of us. If policies regarding guests are changed, we run the very real risk of losing many of our dance clubs. Let's do everything we can to support and enhance this very positive aspect of our lives. Thank you.
Rich Johnstone.
Hello, my name is Rich Johnstone. I live at 5213 Terra Granada 2A. I am president of the Penguin Dance Club, which is a formal dress ballroom dance club which hosts 6 dinner dances per year. My comments regard non-resident attendance at our events and are similar to Jackie's and Jolie's. Our resident members frequently invite their non-resident friends to share an evening of dancing, music, food, and socializing. Setting a limit on the number of non-residents at these events would force the club to decide which residents would be able to invite their friends. Being able to invite their non-resident friends is an important benefit to many of our residents. Furthermore, an enjoyable experience at a Rossmore dance event can be a factor in the decision of some non-residents to move to Rossmore, as it was for my wife Carol and me. The Penguins and other ballroom dance clubs have live music for their events. Most dancers very much prefer dancing to live music, which makes our events more attractive. Without attendance by non-resident guests, the club would not have sufficient revenue for the band expense. In summary, non-residents at Penguin events enable a better experience for residents. Thank you.
Do we have any online participants?
No member forums online.
Thank you all for your participation. We do appreciate it. The chair has no report, so let's move on to unfinished business regarding the discussion related to the flag protocol. Are you going to do that, Ann, or is it Jeff?
Jeff is online right now and he's ready to present.
Good afternoon, everybody. Sorry for not being there in person. So this is a continued discussion and consideration of adopting or recommending adoption of Procedure 104. In Rossmore, for Rossmore Walnut Creek, we have procedures, policies, and rules. This would fall under the category of procedures. And in relation to the flag, we currently do not have any procedures, although our practice has always been to follow any presidential or gubernatorial decrees related to lowering or raising of the flag. In your packet is a proposed procedure that follows just that. It outlines the general procedures for both the presidential and gubernatorial recommendations. It is something that would be consistent. The reason why the recommendation would be to follow them as outlined is you don't want to create a situation where the staff and or current elected officials are trying to interpret or decide based on the merits of a recommendation. You want to be consistent year over year as politics and everything changes frequently. So this is a procedure that would basically implement and memorialize our current practice of following the proclamations of either the president or the governor. So happy to answer any questions. This also came from our legal counsel who had a review of this document as well.
Jeff, I have a question.
Yes.
Are there any California flags flown in Rossmore?
Yes, at the front gate and at Gateway, I believe we have the California flag.
I missed that. Thank you. Any other questions?
How, Jeff, how is Rossmore notified regarding the proclamations that's going to impact or activate the flag lowering?
So Securitas is responsible for raising and lowering the flag, and so they stay tuned into the proclamations that may come over.
You got a question?
So what if there is a discrepancy between what the president says and what the state governor says? What then? Who takes precedence for our community? Because that's happened.
So the federal flag proclamations take precedence in terms of overall authority.
President.
Jeff, what about the recommendation by one of the speakers, just removing the word "and"? Does that need to go back to legal to consider that?
I would think that would put you back in a situation where you're trying to interpret which way you want to follow. But yeah, I would recommend if you want to look at that, we take it back to legal counsel and get their interpretation of that.
Is it appropriate for me to just make some comments and a suggestion? Okay, so, you know, as a board member, I'm very aware that we do not want to put the board or general manager in a difficult position regarding this matter. So it's, oops, sorry. So it's good that a procedure is warranted, but I cannot support the proposed procedure in the current state. You know, Rossmore has taken several actions recently to ensure that we're not taking or supporting actions that appear political in nature. Unfortunately, I believe the current president made a political statement in the flag proclamation regarding Charlie Kirk's death in September 2025. I think it's likely this may happen again during the next 3 years of his term. So I would recommend that Rossmore follow recommendations re flag display that are in U.S. Code Title 4, Chapter 1, Section 7, subsection M. I know the attorney would have to look at that. But if that approach is not acceptable, at a minimum, I believe we should eliminate in the second paragraph, the purpose, the term neutral. Because I do not think we would be following a respectful and uniformly applied manner. I just don't think that what's going to happen over many different years is going to be neutral. So that's a suggestion.
Where do you find the word neutral?
In the purpose, the last line, it says, in a manner that is neutral, respectful, and uniformly applied. So I'm requesting that we remove the term neutral.
Thank you for clarifying.
Any other comments or?
Well, I think there's still a lot of questions. So I'm kind of recommending I go back, I am recommending I go back to legal to see how that Susan's comment plays out, my comment plays out, and just get legal opinion on both questions.
We could do that. Is there other elements of the attached procedure that you would like further reviewed as well, or additions?
Any additional?
Well, I think I would like to know, as Janet asked, what happens in the situation when there's a discrepancy between the two?
Okay.
Can we continue next month?
Do we need any motion or anything to send this back to the legal?
No, we don't need any further motion to continue discussion on this.
Let's continue. Okay. Thank you, Jeff. And our next subject then is the discussion of policies related to facility use, clubs, and guest use. And are you going to do this one?
Yeah. Oh, that's not, like, that's not mine. I'm just gonna pull this one up quickly. Oh no, this is the wrong thing. Stop. Let me just go to this because I can't find the other one. All right. So in the packet for this week, really, we're just trying to kind of frame conversations that need to happen. I think that's the best way to look at it. Because for all the policies related to club use, facilities, et cetera, there's a number of policies, and there's also things that are happening in other committees. Did she tell you instructions to be here? Okay, which is information which is potentially good here for starting points in conversation. One of them has to do with the use of rooms. So the attachment that you see, which is new to this packet, was presented to the KPI task force because they really wanted to understand club use, because one of the focuses there was kind of on the quality of service, was actually, they were trying to find out quantitative information on service delivery of room reservations. And so, and I think Susan, you're part of that committee too, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so part of it was trying to figure out different data points that we did have on club use. What Phil said is correct, I will say. So at that point in time, like what we were doing for the different, I will say through last year, there are certain clubs, they would, by the way, they would give us like guest list for the whole year. And sometimes you see that combined. I will tell you in the case of what he has found out, although we try to keep the names clandestine, the reason why it looks like, oh, there were these 235 guests, some of the clubs don't ask for RSVPs, so it'll be, they expect about 60 from this like guest list to come in. So that is a clarifying point. So in the flow chart, we talked about what do we need to look at when it comes to non-resident use to understand what the use is. And one of the things that we are doing this year, where I said over the next year, we're going to get cleaner information, because there are a lot of clubs that haven't even been giving us what some of these clubs are doing, where it's like, look, we don't RSVP from time to time, but this is what it is. We also have some clubs, they do know from time to time what their attendance of guests are, so we're getting better, more specific data per use. But generally, it just gives us use. And I would also say, to contextualize the idea of like guests coming in, this isn't about, people will kind of create their own narrative about things. So we started looking at this new and trying to figure out what to do with the policies, and it goes down to something which my team is obligated to look at, and it's really an empty measure that we have. When we look at rosters, the roster of club membership can be no more than 20% non-resident. And for us to look at it and verify it, it's somewhat impossible. Like a lot of it is based on trust, quite honestly, until you might see some activity at the gate or something like that. And so we're really trying to figure out, if we have a policy in place and we put these thresholds, they kind of have to mean something. And what was the intention, even at the point of time when that was written, to have some type of threshold? So it's almost like going back to figuring out the definition of clubs. We hear lots of really important testimony, if you will, from the resident forum on kind of, as these things evolve, the importance of having outside participation in many of the activities. But the way the policies are written, they're not considered in that way. And so if you have a policy, the policy should mean something. The policy should be something that administratively makes sense, that you can track, that you can, manage. So we're really trying to figure out before we go into rewriting something. We know that we do have lots of use by non-residents, whether they're on a roster or whether they're a guest for the activity. I will say, we have things like the dance clubs where, again, they have like maybe 250 people that could come, but they're only gonna get like 60 that come in, right? But I will tell you, like the performing arts things, we have a lot of groups, and not just performing arts, other friends of, where you do have these really small groups, and they form so they can use our facilities for functions of outside entities, and the majority of the guests flip. So sure, the planning and the meeting are predominantly residents. So there's all different types of ways in which non-residents are using our facility. More than wear and tear, we're having the availability issue, which is something that KPI was looking at, and really what they're trying to find out. How many rooms now are we having to say, or how many requests for reservations we have to turn down because of availability. So things are really intertwined, and it's not just one thing, it's many different things. What the solution is, we're far from that, I think, because we really still need to understand the use and then what you want to do, with that when it comes to policy, once we know what the
Can I
use
just
is.
jump in, Rela?
Absolutely.
Is there a way, or maybe it would be a good idea to set up some definitions as we go forward? Like a guest, what does that mean? And you don't have to do it here, but I understand, but I want to make sure the committee understands, the residents understand that. What's the difference between a guest and a non-resident club member? And what are the parameters allowed for those two different things?
Is that something you want us to bring back next?
Yeah.
Maybe start with definitions.
And to me, one of the most important things we'll need to consider as we discuss these policies is if there's a policy, I firmly believe it needs to be enforceable. And if it's not enforceable, it's not really a policy. So we need to work to the point that there is a mechanism on a regular basis for doing that. The second part is when clubs submit their lists, what is the verification that the residents or the non-residents are actually living at the addresses that are given?
Just a quick mention, and I would encourage anyone who's interested in this topic to follow work at the KPI task force. So the reservation staff over the last maybe 4 weeks have been monitoring all the requests for room reservations that come in and how they are handled, either accepted as is, accepted in a new location, or not accepted. And not to negate anything you're saying, Ann, but I think you'd be proud to say that our first look at that, out of everything that came in, only one request was not able to be fulfilled.
Right.
So, but this is not the historic time, it's just a snapshot in time.
But this is good information.
Task force is really trying to get, we hear a lot of stories about this or that, so we're trying to get some facts to share with everybody on that.
I have one more thing. Just like we deal with golf, just like we deal with the RV parking things, we are a part of we are a part of Walnut Creek. My curiosity is, are there dance clubs and other organizations similar to this outside of Rossmore? And how do they operate? Do they charge fees? Are there guest fees? Is it club membership? Not that we have to go by it, but we should at least understand, are we an advantage to people because there's a lack of this service outside of Rossmore? I don't know.
Just write myself a note for some homework.
Any other comments? So we'll continue the discussion.
Yeah, because I think it's going to happen in small bites, yeah.
Because we were presented with a lot of information here, and if people do look at the flow chart, I think, Anne, that you've articulated a lot of good questions for us to think about, and I'm sure we're going to be just discussing that further, because there are some really good ways or thoughts on how to parse some of these things that are going on here. But I just want to, in a way, thank you, Mary, for that great
Wait,
question.
can we go back to the chart, please?
This one or the flow chart? I mean, the,
That thing you just had up.
all right.
I was reading the bottom and then we got a picture of Ted.
So your good question about are there dance clubs outside of Rossmore? Because we have such a wide variety of activities here. And I think the dance clubs, they're well represented today. They bring people into the community, and the people coming in here are paying to have
Sharing.
the dance bands that help the
Having
experience.
problem sharing.
So, you know, there are just so many different ways that people who don't live here may contribute to the community. In other situations, they may be they do not wear and tear. So it's a challenging discussion.
What is the first attachment?
No, I agree very much. This is the whole thing is, are we putting it in place, a thing that's of great pleasure to many people, but are we doing it at a cost that is substantially less than it would be to participate outside of Rossmore?
Okay, and where? So Janet, is this the one that you were
Yeah, I
looking at?
wanted to see the bottom.
It's one, the second,
Go all the
go
way
to the next page.
Keep scrolling a little, there, right there. Thank you. Looking at this camera.
Last attachment.
Is that the one? So those are just like total members by interest of the different disciplines, if you will, the different types of clubs that we have.
I think Ted has a question.
It's also online.
And has a question online.
Yes,
Hello.
attached.
Go ahead, Ted. We can hear you.
So there was a comment made, I'm not sure by who. Can you hear me okay first?
Yes.
It's beautiful here in Hawaii. So there was a question brought up that the guests pay when they come in, but the beneficiary of the people who pay is the clubs. And it has nothing to do with Rossmore. So I just wanted to make that point clear when we're talking about usage and we talk about wear and tear and costs and stuff like that. All of the benefit of a guest paying, and I've been to many of these that guests show up, but all the benefit goes to the club because the club usually charges more for a guest than they do for regular members in the events that I've attended. But all that money goes to the club. So that's the point I wanted to make.
What else would you like to present, Ann?
Sorry to interrupt.
No, I mean, really, it's like, basically, because we wanted to focus on that, because we have a whole policy related around that, I kind of need a direction on what other information should I bring to you in order for you to be able to have like good information, comparative information. So you gave me some
I have a
direction
question
on what to bring down.
When a club has non-resident members, how regularly is that list of names compared so that we know it's accurate and current?
So with every history, like club history reservation cycle, so it happens annually, we need to get an updated list of officers, who their authorized users are in a roster. And so it's annually.
Just a comment on that. You know, if you are a club that has under the 20% non-residents, you will often, as those individuals change during the year, send that information to you and send it to secure. Some do, some don't. But if you want your non-resident club members to be able to come in the gate without, you know, that's a good reason to do that. It's not required, but I know clubs.
Yeah,
absolutely. And Ann, I wanted to ask you, in terms of, now I'm understanding you want us to think more about more information, and maybe I didn't do that enough.
We're trying to pull up the flow chart because we'll show the why, because there's two different kind of patterns, two different policies which are really connected to understanding this. And we probably could do some stuff around it, but.
All right, but here on your flow chart, I just have to say, in one of the boxes, can a club invite a non-Rossmore entity to hold a fundraiser in the Rossmore facility with a few one club member?
Excuse me, are you
And I would just like say, heck no. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
maybe I'm being naive, but no, I mean, to utilize our lower than market rates
There we go.
like that, that's not okay. And I don't think our clubs are doing that, but the fundraiser thing, to me, that's a no-brainer.
Well, again, from my particular point of view here, what all of the facilities are for is for the service of people who live here in Rossmore first, and then guests and things, but first to prioritize the access to all of our facilities and amenities for Rossmore residents first because they're paying for it. And that if we are putting a situation where there's insufficient space for clubs to actually use space, then we need to unfortunately put policies in place that make the priority that for Rossmore residents.
Okay, so with the workflow, what I wanted to show was that both 302 and 304 have they both have the consideration of trying to measure the use by non-residents, because they both inform some other things. And part of it has to do with the club activity. So that goes to that question I asked you, right? Yeah, can a group of residents, right? So we actually do have some clubs that are formed for that purpose, just so you know.
Okay.
So there are a group of residents that are formed, basically, they may belong to an outside organization. And it's really so they can have like the big fundraiser, the big gala here.
I got you.
Or something like that, but their day-to-day activity is about planning it, and it could be just like the fellowship of knowing each other through that outside organization. So again, we're doing these other measures where we don't have a problem right now, it seems, with people getting denied use. So do we have a problem? Right, do we not care, and do we not care so much about the activity as long as like, safe, it's not gonna be I mean, we really worry about, there've been some things that come through which aren't like the safest thing to probably do in our facilities. But other than that, most clubs that come in, we improve them, we try to find space for them. Yeah. But the activities are all over the board, and they end up creating some other types of questions. So let me demystify that a little bit. So again, let's say, we have a really great club and they do a weekly meeting, but once a year, they're transferring their membership to a nonprofit to come in and do a fundraiser. So those are the types of things we really want to know. Is that okay? Because then what's happening is, I get it, it's something that means a lot to that organization, but now an outside fundraiser is coming in, and by inference, Rossmore is basically donating. They're giving an in-kind donation. Okay. And this is happening with many different, it's not just one, it's more than one.
Okay, that's an isolated situation that I would really like to investigate deeply.
Okay.
Because I want to know numbers and how that affects the budget. And just to determine, is it a problem? I don't know yet. Okay. I haven't seen data on that yet.
And also, as I've said in the past, at some point, we can look at some kind of revised fee schedule, because our fees, I think, are below market rate. And if a club wanted to bring in a nonprofit to have an event, that's an example. I mean, would we consider, a fee schedule that might be sliding depending on what it is, what the nonprofit is, what they're doing. I mean, they're here because our rates are very low, very competitive. Let's say that.
Well, just a question. In a situation like that, if the club is sponsoring the event, then we're not charging them for the room. We're charging them for the setup, but we're not charging for the room. And that sometimes is a big deal. I mean, that's, like you said, income. And can you share this with me? Because I don't know. How is a guest identified and counted?
So the only way that we can do that is by the gate list. And again, many gate lists, some gate lists are specific because they have a fixed, it could be something where they're coming in for something where they need to know the numbers, like a sit-down dinner or something. So you have a more precise number that comes in. And others are similar.
Specific by name or is it
Oh, it's name.
specific by number?
It's name.
Name.
It's name. Yeah, and then there are others, kind of like the Sunday Dancer, right? Is it the Sunday or the Rossmore Ballroom? They'll put a list up of about, like, it's over 200, it could be like 260 names, but they'll get 50 to 60 of those guests that come in any week.
So when
Or
a
any
person
event.
comes through the gate, they identify themselves as a guest of this
On
particular
that list, yeah.
organization?
Yeah, and it's also, so the gate knows on this date, they kind of know the list they have to queue up that people may be coming in. So we're trying to help the gate manage what was becoming an onslaught, where sometimes it was too much, they were just like waving people in. So they wanted things that were a bit more precise, because we're trying to really help them harden the gate a little bit. And it just helped us kind of understand the flow of folks coming in.
So in relation to that, if there are many guests coming in for an event, do we know now if those guests do an RSVP so the club knows how many of the 60 guests on the list are coming in?
We currently don't ask that. We currently
do
don't
not
track
have
that. And there was actually at least one recent activity where we need to figure out how to work with that particular club, because it's been a repeat, like over attendance beyond the capacity of the room. But that usually, I mean, they're managing them. We don't know how. It would kind of be nice to know just for fire code reasons, but we really have only had one issue with one group.
Okay, so you've had one issue, but it relates back to scale and staffing. I mean, you're asking residents to say, I think I'm gonna have 30 people in this meeting, so I know I can go into fireside room's too big, but I can go into another room which is more applicable. So I think maybe there should be some I don't know yet, but I think there should be some standardized RSVP situations so that everyone, the club and staff, can better estimate what's the volume, what's the impact on custodial staff, cleanup, whatever. I don't know how you.
I mean, we know that by occupancy, and I will say that, I mean, any of the dance groups, and they have outside guests, they give us really accurate occupancies of the event. So occupancy is different than a gate list many times. And sometimes, some of them, we kind of know the nature and the dynamic of it. Others that kind of might do a one-off, we're saying, you're putting a list of 300 people. Oh, we actually had this happen, right? There was somebody that gave us a gate list of 700 people. None of our rooms take 700 people. And that's when we realized there was a group that actually they do a private rental now because they really were just hosting something for their particular, community to come in. So it's like really, it's a private party that they have, like on a monthly basis.
Something, Ann, that also would be very interesting to me, when we have a very large event, one of the dance things would be this. What is the actual cost of that event, the cleanup, the setup, and all the things, so that we know what we're really talking about with this?
Oh, okay.
We know what the cost is that Rossmore is supporting for those events, and then again, we know which ones they belong to. But the idea is, what does it cost for those large events? Any additional questions? Well, I think this is a continuing discussion. Since there's no additional new business, the next meeting will be held on Monday, March 9, 2026 at 1:30 right here in the boardroom, and we welcome all. The meeting is now adjourned.